And yeah, so this is the next session, which is about upcoming opportunities, evolving job roles in banking, financial institutions, and fintech. And for this session, we have all the luminaries I was looking at. And let's see if I can see all of you. That I can see Gaurav. Gaurav Anand. Hi, Gaurav. How are you doing?
Very good, Samir. Thank you. How are you?
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. So Gaurav is a CEO and founder of Namaste Credit. And Namaste Credit obviously has done an excellent job on the SME lending perspective. They also entered the neo banking piece as well. So I think your experience will be very, very vital for us as such. We have here Smrithi. I think from a pure fintech perspective, e-commerce perspective, I think the kind of impact Flipkart has done in the country has been amazing, right? I think the kind of volumes we think about are like mind-boggling. So I think we always wanted to understand how e-commerce giant is entering into the fintech community and fintech segment, and how you're scaling. So good to have you here, Smrithi. Your perspective will be very, very valuable to us.
Hey, Samir. I'm happy to be here as well.
Thank you, Smrithi. And then we have Sabya. Sabya is a dear friend and Chief Business Officer of Perfios. Perfios is amongst the largest of amongst the largest, maybe the largest B2B fintech in the country, and very well funded. And the impact on the ecosystem is so high that if anybody thinks about some products, some areas, any lender in the country would know about Perfios for sure. I think that's how I learned. I met Govi, I think 6 years back, and somebody told me, "You're a banker, you don't know about Perfios? There must be some issue with you, right?" So I think that's how I met Perfios team. And welcome on board, Sabya.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for this generous talk about Perfios. We are not as big as you have made it.
You guys have been big, man. Everybody, I mean, I have not met a digital lender or banker who does not know about Perfios. Okay, let's keep it there because everybody knows you guys. So super. Thank you. This forum is amazing. So as I said, my request to each one of you, if you have a question, send it back to me as a host. I send a chat request. I'll take this question and ask this question back to the forum. And with this, we can start right away. So the first question I'm going to ask is to Gaurav. Gaurav, from your perspective, what are the? I mean, you have seen on all sides. So as per you, what are the key top job opportunities or roles which will come up in the BFSI / fintech sector in next couple of years? What are the roles you think will be coming up?
Sure. So first of all, hello and good evening to everyone. So Samir, I think from a fintech point of view, I think we take a so generally in a startup world, you always look at you pay disproportionate more time to micro factors, right? Because these are the things which impact your business immediately, and you. And in a startup, you live for tomorrow. You don't live for next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. You start preparing for what's there for tomorrow, right? And in that bit, a lot of times we end up missing the macro picture. Like, what are the trends? What are the areas which are evolving and which will have a more intermediate to long-term impact on your business, right? And whenever we take a conscious call, which direction we are going to move as a company, where are we going to hire more, we try to give a little bit more credence to the macro factors as well, right? And if you ask us very candidly, if, the macro factors, which are, while the micro factors are, we all know, right? We have a challenging situation, businesses are recovering, economy is still in the doldrums, global economy is still very uncertain. But if you look at a slightly longer term, medium term macro factors, we believe that some of the changes which are happening are essentially for very good reasons, right? And that's going to have a significantly bigger impact on the kind of roles that are going to emerge, and which will ultimately result in the skill sets, right? So we are seeing automation in the fintech space. A lot of people talk about automation. A lot of banks have showcased their interest to embrace automation and AI ML. I think the inflection point is much earlier than what it was pre-COVID. So from our vantage point, we are looking at least 3-4 key skill sets within our firm. We're clearly looking at more data scientists, who can build newer models, because the historical models will have more and more less relevance. And because there's a constant, or you can say there's a repeated events of crisis happening at a much faster clip, that means your historical models become less relevant. That means you have to continue to build models which are more forward looking. And in that, data science becomes a very critical role to play, as we are expanding. Very interestingly, we are also looking at hiring some of the professionals who are expert at managing employees with a mental well-being. One conscious call, I know as a startup, it's an investment. You don't look at from that perspective because you're dealing with micro factors. But if you're looking at macro factors, I think the emotional health or the mental wellness of employees is becoming extremely relevant and critical skill sets to have. And we believe it's incumbent upon us to have roles and responsibilities, particularly around improving the mental strength of our employees. This COVID has actually made the world very isolated, and that starts reflecting in the day-to-day activities, day-to-day engagement of employees as well. And hence, having a person dedicated, professional, managing the well-being of our employees, mental well-being, we believe it's extremely important. So just to round up the answer, so data science is extremely powerful. Machine learning, I think increasingly there are more and more avenues and areas within finance sector, BFSI segment, where we are looking at disrupting it. Banks are looking at solutions. So there's a greater need there. And on top of it, having certain professionals who can manage the mental well-being of our employees is an additional responsibility or role that we are looking at filling up very, very quickly.
No, I think mental wellness is something which I had no idea that you guys are hiring for. One, I think you guys are very, very well funded then. That looks like the case, which are your as well. And the other thing is maybe even the founders need that I think mental wellness as well, because I think the kind of pressure which this ecosystem is given has been very, very high. And I think it's a magic that so many of the fintechs have still survived and come out. I've not heard anybody sort of quitting easily. Though many of them would have closed, but it has not been an easy ride. I mean, people are not giving up, right? So they're coming back and fighting, which is good. So I think moving to the other side of the structure, right? So now I see, so Smrithi, from your perspective, you are in another segment, right? And you are getting into sort of fintech segment. Maybe from your own personal journey, I want to understand, how do you sort of structure how do you move into the new role, and what are challenges of coming into a new role which is more into completely different industry, which is what you are right now going through. So some advice would be useful for many of us who are thinking that we will be lifelong banker, and here you come and changing the direction. So really good to hear that.
Thanks, Samir, for that. And thanks, Gaurav, for the really insightful, at least 3 points that you raised. I quite like the third one, actually, right? But coming to what, Samir is pointing out, I think one of the things that we discovered very early on is fintech is very, very different from e-commerce, right? In e-commerce, the nuances are more around supply chain and consumer behavior of demand, etc. Right? In fintech, the thinking is, I mean, you really have to unlearn a lot of those things, right? Because some of the fintech products, especially things like maybe Insuretech, etc., are a lot to do with creating the need within the customer, right? Or even in lending, if you look at it, tapping into very innate needs which may not be very obvious, really, right? So the thing is, it's a lot about people who can really unlearn and move into a new role, as you rightly said, right? Because in e-commerce, ideally, there are these 3-4 things that you could experiments that you could be running, and you would see the results of those experiments maybe in a week, in 3 weeks, in 3 months, etc. Right? But in the fintech space, if you look at it, right, it's a slightly longer game as well, right? I mean, if we're talking about lending, for instance, right? It's you would know the actual result in maybe 2 years when you look at how your NCLs are and how your book is performing, etc. Right? Because as a lot of people would say, the easiest thing is to give money, right? But but how does the whole book perform is really the catch, right? So so here I would say, especially in an organization which is getting into fintech really from a very different DNA, and the DNA could be retail, the DNA could be e-commerce, the DNA could be anything else, right? A lot of unlearning, a lot of management, making the management understand and making the board understand the nuances of this, the pace at which things will be, the consumer behaviors, the understanding of regulations, etc. Right? So a lot of those really come into play, right? And of course, there is an angle of usage of data and usage of legal and compliance as well, right? Because data, for instance, the rules have changed quite a bit over the last 1.5 years itself, right? In the sense, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and it is an evolving sort of an aspect, right? One is the law of the land, the other is what are you comfortable doing even over and above that, right? As a brand, and where are you comfortable and how are you comfortable using data, etc. Right? So a lot of those nuances and understanding those has been the key, Samir, in terms of when we were building a new team, on the fintech side, right? People who can marry pure play BFSI, right, with the understanding of an internet industry and internet consumer, right? So those are the kind of people that we have been looking at, and who have been able to sort of go up that learning curve, right? And one of the things I definitely want to stress upon is what Gaurav had called out, right, around data sciences, right? That has been a significant investment for us. In fact, on the data sciences side, we have been looking at folks internationally as well, because we've really wanted to sort of up the game on that front. So whether it is Israel or whether it is Seattle or whether it is any other hotspot of data sciences, right? So we've I think that is an area which is really strongly coming up, and something that would be of focus going forward, Samir.
Excellent, excellent. And the linked question is that how do you handle, let's say, when you hire and these people don't know, how do you train them, right? Because the trainers may also, how do you get that engagement done, saying that, okay, learn new things, get resistance. How do you get that training up and running?
So see, it's a mix of Samir. It's a mix of right hiring and training, I would say, right? Because there are some intrinsics which we also look at, right? And the ability to really unlearn and then have a steep learning curve with respect to data, with respect to consumer understanding, etc. Right? And we have very sort of focused approach during hiring itself, right? And of course, once you hire, there is a training process, right? Where if you look at the way we have structured the teams as well, right? We have people from a BFSI expert and let's say a consumer internet expert, right? So it's more like a tag team. May not be at the same level. Maybe one might be a mentor to the other, or vice versa, right? But the idea is to have a mixture of people in the team, right? So that they learn from each other, because it's about hiring, training on specific aspects, which could be, let's say, functional trainings itself for, let's say, the non-BFSI guys to learn about the BFSI intrinsics, right? Terminologies, subject matters, legal and compliance aspects, etc. And for the BFSI guys to really understand and get into the nuances of the internet industry, right? And the third leg is actually the on-the-job training, where, because you have a mixture of both sets of people in the team, they learn from each other.
So, Sabya, from your side, I mean, now you're in completely not in the pure fintech industry, but you are more enabling the industry. What kind of role change you have seen within your organization, and what are the challenges you face in hiring for those roles?
Samir, see, what we realized, the future winners in finance are actually likely to be those who control the customer interaction.
Okay.
So that's our firm belief.
Okay.
Having said that, there are multiple roles that has evolved over the last 12 years of our journey, and started off with very core engineering guys. Today, that engineering, as Smrithi and Gaurav already told, anything and everything that revolve with data, the roles related to that will evolve. Okay, so whether you call it data scientist, whether you call it data modelers, whether you call it data analyst, whether you call it data vision guys, whatever you call it, it's more of a nomenclature. But anything to do with data, those roles are evolving, and we are not any exception to that. So definitely, we also have a lot of data science roles. Obviously, that's being there. Of late, we have hired a couple of them as well. But the other thing, as I said, the control of the customer interaction is something that will determine the future of finance, actually, from a technology side. So that means a lot of app developers, UI UX developers, and the missing in both the sides, and which I will come to on the challenge aspect as well, are the solution architect. It's not a new word. The typical large SIs also used to have solution architect. The difference then and now is that the solution architect is a rare combination who needs to have banking domain knowledge, plus the technology knowledge, plus the customer experience to design a journey. Now, it's the rarest of the rarest combination possible. So it's kind of dream come true for any company to get a guy who has all of these three. So what any company is doing is dividing this into three different roles. We call it customer success, we have account management, and we then have a core engineering. The combination of these three is something that they are going and doing a solutioning. Ideally, we need roles where a person at least have fair amount of knowledge on business, a fair amount of customer experience to build the journey, and a fair amount of knowledge in terms of engineering. So that means should be an engineering graduate, run business side, and has customer experience. So difficult, but this is the biggest challenge that we face today, and we definitely need more and more solution architects. So I think that's something that the role that we see. Now, since it is in the financial domain, what is the next thing that is important is the trust factor. The trust factor will, and since you are playing with the customer's personal data, the trust is of utmost importance. And I think the next word connected to trust is a fair amount of transparency. So any technology-based decisions needs to be unbiased and need to be transparently disclosed and displayed. So the roles that can define this and can solve this, I think, are the next roles for the next 10 years.
Okay, excellent. So let me ask some difficult questions, okay? Now, every team has a set of people who are willing to transition and get into new roles and stuff like that. And then you have actually a majority who likes BAU, right? If somehow they have reached to some level of expertise, they want to retain that. So how do you, I mean, Gaurav, from your perspective, how do you manage or help people to transition to a new role without you pushing hard? Because then people break and then they say, my boss doesn't understand. So how do you get them to align to new fact that pure these roles don't exist? You need to learn about this and that. Technology guys have to learn business to technology. How do you transition that? And in between, my request to each one of you, please give us your feedback. We are really looking for your feedback. And all those who will be giving us your feedback will give you open banking, full-fledged document as well as the year-end report as well, directly to your email box. So you can share that as well. Sometimes you have to incentivize as well, right? So over to you. So how do you get people to sort of work on it, Gaurav?
Yeah, so Samir, it largely boils down to the understanding the real incentive for the particular resource or employee, right? There are literally two ways that anybody gets motivated: is it by the money or by the challenges, right? People who and it's much easier to deal with the people who get who are looking for more compensation increase. That's why they're looking for an elevation. But so it's much easier to do that, but it's a very linear way of dealing with that kind of a problem statement. It's the other one which is more trickier, but it's actually very good for the company if you get people who are much more incentivized by taking on more challenging roles. It's those kinds of people who really push the organization. And I personally, if you ask me, at any day, I want to nurture more of those individuals, because it keeps you on your toes. You have to constantly, motivate them by giving them more and more challenging tasks, right? While compensation will follow, right? As the company grows, your top performance anyways, go away with a better comp. But it's the people who challenges you as founders, as CEO, as co-founders, that really keeps you on your toes to constantly look for more challenging assignments, projects for those folks, so that they can and so that it's not a problem of transitioning from one skill set to another. It's am I fully saturated with the skill that I own? The day your job becomes more or less routine work, you will, as an individual, you will get that feeling. So the task is, the challenge is that how do you keep moving the glass ceiling more and more higher? By giving those folks more and more challenging tasks, right? And I'll give you a very specific example, Samir. We have a very smart, one of the solution architect position person in our firm who's been with us for a long time, right? A great guy, very smart, comes up with good solutions. Now the challenge that we find out with him is that he every after 2 years or 3 years, he says that I have touched my peak. I don't know. I think my learning kind of ends here. I want to move out. So we literally had to, you can say, throw more and more challenges at this guy. Come up with a product, come up with some problem statements that our clients have given us. Give this guy the more problem statements. Give him more challenges so that he can keep himself, constantly mentally charged, mentally motivated, and keep and keep moving the glass ceiling higher and higher. Right? Like I said, I mean, it's not easy. This is the more complex, more trickier set of people to deal with. But I think it's important for any organization to nurture folks like these, because it keeps the startup on its toes. It keeps the founders non-complacent, and it creates an environment of like-minded people who are constantly looking at pushing the envelope, pushing the glass ceiling, right? So that's how we typically deal. First of all, we identify what is a main trigger point for a person. Why is he looking for a transition? Why is he looking for a more responsibility? If he's a farmer, easy to manage. Secondly, but inherently, we look to nurture more the latter type of people who are constantly looking for more challenges, because it puts us it gives us additional challenge to create more challenges for them to solve for. So that's how I would treat this one.
This one is good. This one is good. But let's, Smrithi, from your side, right? Now, the question is that this transition is not easy in a normal world, right? Now, in a normal world, what you will do, you will take the guy out for a walk or a coffee and have a longer chat. And if he's get emotional, you suck out the emotions, talk to the person, get it out, right? And we have all done in our life, guiding, helping. Now this is a world where we don't meet people. New roles we have hired, they have not even known them personally. So how do you manage this transition where everything is evolving into a new world? I'm sure you must be hiring few bankers as well, which are suddenly getting shocked. You like their experience is yes, useful, but you don't know how to utilize, because the moment he gets in, he's shocked with the environment and say, oh, I want to leave. Maybe you would have had some attrition within few days as well, saying, I didn't know that where we are entering is right or wrong. So how do you handle this sort of complex world where rules are changing in COVID, where you can't even meet people?
Yeah, Samir, it's actually quite, even without COVID, the transition is challenging enough, right? And with COVID, it really adds to the complexity, right? In fact, we had a very senior colleague who joined us right in the middle of COVID, right? And he never got to meet any of us or his own team, right? But he's been trying to understand the nuances of Flipkart and the nuances of a fast-paced internet organization compared to a more traditional setup, right? So it's certainly not easy, and as I said, even without COVID, right, the transition from a traditional BFSI organization to a new age fintech is certainly not easy, right? And I think there needs to be a bit of both understanding and patience from both sides, really, right? Because it's very easy for the BFSI person to also come in and say, hey, this is just way too chaotic, and these people don't understand what they are doing. And it is very easy for the incumbents in the fintech also to say that hey, this person is just too slow and too traditional in his or her thinking, right? And may not work out for our kind of a culture, right? So it's really about, firstly, the leadership to take cognizance of this difference, really, right? And push it down to the teams as well, that there is this difference, and we need to appreciate this difference and learn from each other, right? And we and to be very very honest, I mean, we've also done a lot of changes to our own hiring process as well, right? Because initially, even in our own hiring process, right, we we had a very low success rate, let me put it that way, right? So we had to also take some help from maybe industry experts or third party organizations who understand both the nuances and would come forward to sort of help us identify the right candidates, especially at senior levels, etc., right? And coming to COVID specifically, right, in a world where we're not able to see each other or really get the new people to understand the importance of understanding things like engineering and digital products, etc., right? Because those are not things that are traditionally there in traditional BFSI companies, right? Because for instance, I had a colleague who said, just on a light note, yeah, let's talk to the IT guys, right? The engineering team just does not like being called the IT guys, for instance, right? So it's a on a lighter note, but it could be just understanding very simple things like that, to understanding how to use digital products to make life easier, to scale the business, etc., right? Certainly not easy during COVID, right? We do have things like a buddy system where we do have a peer who is from, who spent a long time probably in the internet industry itself, to team up with somebody from a traditional BFSI background, right? And that buddy is also responsible to make this person successful, right? Give them the knowledge, handhold them, etc., right? And that buddy could be mostly a peer. Sometimes it could also be a level junior or something like that, right? But we do try to ensure that, one, we have the right hiring mechanisms. We do take support from external sources as well wherever needed to do the right kind of hiring, right? And once we get the person in, we do have a lot of what do you call it, culture and data and onboarding, and even for the incumbents who are welcoming the new members of the team, a lot of training on understanding and appreciating differences, right? that also goes in, because that is really, really important, right? Otherwise the person can come in and feel like completely out of place, and that it's just too chaotic, right? Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I agree. I agree. I think COVID has been tougher for us to sort of absorb people in, and we are all going through that journey. I think it's not one for all. It's everybody goes through. So,
in fact, Samir, I think this becomes even more tougher when you're hiring freshers, right? Because this is a lot which is coming right from the classroom training, which are very used to, or they look up to do on the job learning, and the buddy environment that Smrithi was talking about, that's completely evaporated. Right, literally, these guys have to come from a classroom, and unfortunately, in India, our classroom training is not adequate or not fully, doesn't fully prep up for the on-the-job positions, right? So I feel most, I feel most sad about the freshers who are coming from a classroom setup culture, getting into and being forced to get into an isolated learning atmosphere or environment where they have to literally, got the job offer, being made to work from home, doesn't know my colleagues are, my immediate manager is, and imagine the plight of those guys. I think that this is literally the litmus test for the freshers, who can quickly adjust to this isolated learning environment faster than the others. Right. So I just wanted, I thought, that was one of the empirical experience we have seen, and we have seen how people struggle in this particular category the most.
no, I think your point is valid. It's tough for freshers to come out and sort of get absorbed in this situation. So I think again a quick feedback to everyone. Please give your feedback back to us, or also ask questions. I've seen a couple of questions coming in. I'll take those questions just after that, and we'll close exactly at 5:45. That's the longest we will go. So if you have some questions, please share. So Sabya, the question is that on one side we are talking about these young guys who are just joining the ecosystem without knowing much about it. But I think there's a different category which exists, which is anywhere between 35 to 40-year-old or maybe above, who suddenly find their skills irrelevant because one, I think the COVID has changed the job profiles as well. Many of them may be redundant right now, or maybe know that they are likely to miss out on the opportunities going forward because maybe they are expert in X, Y, and Z, and that's not relevant. So how do individuals prep for it across these categories?
See, Samir, I think there are two sides of it. One side is that the workforce themselves are changing. Second is the way the organizations are evolving requires different kind of skill sets and dynamics. Not just limited to BFSI, but across industry segments. Every organization is going through tough times due to COVID. And it is not just COVID, even all earlier recessions have showed a different kind of evolution from the process orientation perspective, the way the industries used to operate, and post recession, how they have come out of it. Similar, something will COVID will throw out. What does that mean is we have seen more and more automation. We have seen more and more digitization and digitalization. What does this mean? Anything that has to do with physical activity may see some amount of job loss. I mean, and different research report, including McKinsey, EY, Forbes, if you read any of those, they say roughly about 800 million job losses expected due to digital, which is limited to our space. What does this mean? So for a bank, the branch infrastructure will go down, typically. Mm-hmm. The bank no more is just a bank. They are managing as a platform where they want to do the continuous and complete customer life experience. Okay, so for that, if they are becoming more and more as a platform, then there are a lot of jobs. I mean, we can get into it very deeply, but at a very high level, the jobs which today are not touching the customer's life directly or indirectly, maybe a threat from a BFSI space. Now, what does this mean? I mean, of course, at the back of it, there is engineering data, which directly is not interfacing with the customer, but the way they are modeling, the way they are bringing out the technology, the way they are doing the innovation is impacting the customer life through the platform that a bank or a fintech is providing. So anything and everything that misses this touch, I think, has a risk. How do we encounter this? A very obvious answer, which everybody says, is upskilling. It is not easy at the age of 40 or 45 or 50. It is easy at 20, 25, 19, 18, whatever. So below 30, probably. After that, it is tough. Having said that, I think there are multiple online programs, webinars such as yours. There are certain learning courses which is running across, not just that the organization needs to do. The first thing that I would say is the individual should have the responsibility to learn, and not that the organization will do and then I will learn. I mean, anybody who believes in that, I'm sure they are being left out. And the organization will also view at them at a very differently. So I think there has to be a lifelong learning. And there are smarter people who are looking at that. In fact, they are joining organizations which provides opportunity to learn throughout their life and give vacations for studies rather than a monetary incentive. I mean, I'm aware of a couple of such organizations and a couple of my friends who have joined such organizations where they get paid leaves to study, and they're not looking for cash monetary rewards. So I think a mix of all this will evolve. And third and critical component, which I think none of us, including us, are not used to, is that the AI algorithm and intelligent machines will be our co-workers than humans. None of us are used to it. I think that's a very, very difficult phase which is forthcoming. It is still not hit us. But the day it has hit us, and probably pandemic was a bit of a preparation, that you are working from home. Did you have the complete integrity to work from home seamlessly without any interference, and you have given 100% to your company? So I think the companies are also learning and the individuals are also learning, but that is how it is. You will talk to machine, you will work with machine. You don't have co-worker to mentor you. It is the machine who will mentor. So the earlier we learn, the faster we learn, it is going to be better. I think that's how it is going to change.
No, I agree. And somebody was asking me, why did I quit from a bank? I said, because I was already 45. Few more years of success and then you are out because you're too old to adapt, right? And now I'm almost 50, so it's not bad time to be in, right?
But I think, Samir, just to add one small sentence, see, at the age of 40, if you have learned enough about banking and the domain, and if you can just learn a bit about technology, I would not say you will become an engineer suddenly, but if you learn at least the basics, you are definitely going to be consumed somewhere.
No,
it is not that you will be left alone and that you are old enough and you will not get a job. No, that will not be the case.
Right.
Anyways, I think coding has not is not anymore a very rare skill anymore. So I think you need how to. I think I agree, Sabya, that I think it's important to have people who can find good use cases of the technology that's been built by around you. So makes sense. Yeah.
I think I only have one complaint to all those who are more than 45. They guys react also slowly, right? So, you get lost when you talk to of my age and old. He said, "Nahi, kar lenge, we will do it later." I mean, what we'll do later means what? Yeah. I mean, you are 45. If we don't do, we are anyways out of the game, right? We're the most expensive guys anybody is paying for. So anyway, question, maybe a specific question. Some of them have come right now. This question specifically is to Smrithi, to you. What are the skills you're looking while hiring for people in business teams and partnership teams? That's a specific question to you. When you're hiring for business or partnership teams.
Got it. Samir, that's a very, very pertinent question, right? In the sense, when we're looking at business teams and partnership teams, right? Traditionally, if you look at partnership hiring across Flipkart, and not just within fintech. And we look at people who can who are not just maintaining relationships, right, but also owning the business end to end. What I mean by that is a lot of commitments when you give to partners, right, is also your ability to understand the digital product, is your ability to understand timelines of commitments, your ability to understand what can be used from a data standpoint and not, right, and how will all of this tie into your P&L really, right? So unlike, let's say, a pure play offline business, right, where the business teams might be able to control a lot, right, in a technology enabled business, right, the technology understanding, and as Sabya was referring to, right, it's not that you will become an engineer tomorrow, but that understanding is very, very important for you to be able to effectively maintain the relationship, do the business development as well, right? So your ability to learn that, you need not come with that understanding out of the box, right? But what we look at is, can this person learn some of those things, right? And you could say that person could be 45 years old, could be 35, could be 55, right? That ability to understand the tech stack, understand timelines, bring in all the internal stakeholders together, right, on to a common ground, and working, because in what happens is two organizations come together to work, right, and it's not just two individuals, right, because it could be the legal teams from this side, it could be the technology teams from this side, and the legal from here, technology from here, etc., right? So the person who is leading this needs to have a good view of the push and pull of all these different teams across both sides, right? So yeah, that's what we look at.
Yeah, and the guy should be a bit of a politician as well. Nahi to kaam nahi hoga. The things will not work right. It will be hard also when you do it right. This is good. This is good. I think I think we are already overshot the time, and honestly, this discussion is more like I'm really learning. And somebody was asking me, how do you get these speakers? I said, boss, I want to hear them. That's why I get them here. So it's learning for me. We last way one question back to you. I think a lot of people are still asking, but let's say last one question to all of you, which is, what is the advice you'll give to HR teams to align to this ecosystem? I think I'm somehow feeling that they are still teaching, telling their teams soft skill lilo, English speaking lilo, learn something which is like basics, right? They're not even diverting their attention to it. So what will be your advice to your HR teams to make it happen as such? So maybe Gaurav, you want to take it generically. And for everyone else, please give us feedback. We are still waiting for feedback. We have got 22 in, few more required. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely, I think the HR, I think HR roles themselves are going to undergo a massive watershed moment, right? Suddenly, and I think some of them are I would say good as well, because for too long a time we tried pushing, or we tried retrofitting the industrial era efficiency models or performance models into our services industry, right? So all the just in times of the world, Six Sigma accuracy, productivity, all the inherent models have been still being used, or largely industrial era efficiency or performance metrics models. That's going to change completely, right? That means HR has to really upskill themselves as well, how to deal with the new reality, right? And I think just alluding this point to your point, Samir, which you mentioned, that even at 45 or plus year age, people think that I will figure it out. And why this inertia? Because previous few crises have not changed things drastically. Like if you pick up the 2008-2009 financial crisis, it was supposed to be a massive crisis, but everybody was back to normal. Like things were consistently back to how they were being done pre-financial crisis. This situation is very different. This situation will really demand, and I think we are increasingly, the HR which realizes that we are increasingly becoming more high probable black swan event world, will survive better. The crises are increasing at a much faster clip. HR has to undergo significantly upskilling themselves as well. They have to start dealing with how do they tackle this remote working, yet efficiency tracking tools. So the intersection of technology in the HR function will increasingly become more rampant, right? HRs themselves have to upskill. HR has to figure out how some of these efficiency metrics which have been retrofitted, how these techniques can be upskilled as well, right? So I am actually very bullish that this whole HR function itself will undergo massive changes for good, for bringing more newer avenues of measuring people, hiring people, retaining people. Right, and again, I think the HR job description will also undergo change. That now increasingly how you deal with the mental wellness of your employees becomes an integral skill set that even HR would be required to deal with day in, day out. So for me, we are expecting, and I'm pretty bullish that this particular skill set itself will undergo massive change, unlearning and new learning.
No, this is good. This is good. Maybe I'm just stretching time by 2-3 more minutes. So I think I'll give you one feedback that I was talking to a bank, very odd-looking bank, and they told me, "Can you offer me services through APIs so that you have your LMS and I have my LMS? I'll integrate my structure so that people automatically." And now HR head is talking about APIs and saying auto integration. I don't want to get into it. You should if your content is good, they will consume, and I'll pay accordingly, right? Amazing structure change which we see. And okay, moving to Flipkart, I think you have one of the most forward-looking HR. So how do you manage and maintain that, right? How do you give them requirements? Because I've seen them reactive, right? So how do you keep them on their toes?
So, Samir, actually, that's been it's quite acknowledged in the organization that the onus of business is on everybody, and the onus of employees is on everybody, right? It's not that the onus of business is on the business head and the onus of employees is on the HR head as such, right? So there is a very close working between each business heads and the HR business partners as such, right? And the HR business partners in each function actually understand the nuances of every business, right? In the sense they have to, and that's what Gaurav was talking about. HR needs to upskill as well, right? Because and as he rightly said, it is not just about moving from manufacturing to a services kind of a setup, but here it is way more fast-paced, way more first principles driven, innovation driven kind of a culture, right? And if the HR doesn't understand the nuances of that business, it becomes very difficult to look at training a certain way, to look at soft skills a certain way, to look at hiring principles and policies, compensation, etc. Right? Some of these things, and especially let's say if we look at Flipkart, right? Fintech could work very differently from a B2B tech to a grocery tech to a fashion there are 6-7 different kinds of technology organizations within Flipkart itself, right? And for instance, compensation cannot be benchmarked evenly across all of these sectors as well, because demand, supply and skills could be very different within these sectors itself, right? So the crux, I would say, is for the HR to really understand the business. And in fact, we do have a lot of rotation programs where we do have certain business leaders going into HR functions as well, right? And sometimes it's even vice versa, right? And this could be more like a 6-month rotation, or it could be a career shift as well, right? For instance, our current CHRO of Flipkart was the former SVP of engineering for our e-cart function, which is the supply chain function, right? So we do have a lot of rotation as such, right? So there is infiltration, and the knowledge sharing between the teams is quite porous that way.
No, I can see that. And when we have a dialogue with your team, I think it's been always at a different level, right? Absolutely different level, and aligned to business needs as well. Few banks are definitely doing it, but it's still work in progress. So maybe last point from Sabya on generically on HR or anything else you want to share with the team here.
See, Samir, I completely agree to what Smrithi and Gaurav said, and I think Smrithi told exactly what and how the business and HR should together collaborate and solve this. But 3 or 4 basic tenets which we follow in Perfios, and I think it is not about HR because we were a very small org. It is typically the senior management, co-founders led policies or how to hire we have made and evolved. So, but we looked into 3 core principles, and I think that's what will evolve eventually and form different tenets probably. But 3 things: job-based competencies, team-based competencies, and firm-based competencies. These are 3 core things. Within that, individually, when somebody is interviewed, we go through these 3 components very carefully. Because I cannot take somebody who doesn't fit our culture. Similarly, I cannot take an individual for a particular team who will not be able to fit into the team dynamics. You call it dynamics, a little polished word, or team politics. And third, for the job that you are hired, if you are, if your capabilities do not match the future job requirement of that role, there is no point in hiring. I think if these 3 things are, though you may try your best, you may still go wrong. But if you are correctly judging the person in these 3 tenets, I think you'll make a right decision, and HR lives will also be a little simpler later on. On top of it, of course, we look at systemic thinking. Can you work in an ambiguous situation? Because fintech needs ambiguity. You are playing with a concept. It is not proven. And typically this happens because Gaurav touched upon freshers, and I deal with a lot of freshers. They come with a set notion because that has been taught in the college. It is not their mistake. Unfortunately, when they land, they see it is completely ambiguous. There is nothing that can be put into practice. So I think these are very, very critical element when you judge the person. Instead of just looking at whether he has that relevant experience, I don't think that matters anymore. That is one just small element.
No,
it is about, and it is about what I see. Is that person able to think systematically? Can he work in the face of uncertainty? Can he work under multiple cultural scenarios? These are something which is evolving, and I think fintechs will go through all of this. Because when you are managing a team of 40, 50 to 500 to 5,000, there are different cultural issues that will come. And how that person will. So I think HR will have to evolve, as Smrithi and Gaurav already said. They will also have to upskill a lot. And the only way to upskill is to collaborate without thinking with the business partners very, very considerately, and not feeling ashamed that, oh, I am HR, why should I go and talk to business? Vice versa, business, oh, they are HR, what will they understand? Why should I go and talk? I think unless that happens, that rapport build-up is there, it will be tough time for the individuals, incumbent individuals who join the organization. So to make their life smooth, I think this is something which is important. But I think the core principle are those 3 tenets. If we follow it, if we describe it, because unfortunately recruitment across world, India more so, is more still on reference.
I agree.
We don't do meticulous assessment. Okay. So we may say whatever. You go and ask any HR to a very large organization and say, tell me, how do you assess? I don't think there is a structured way. Unless you go to a big 4 consulting firm, they have a little structured way. The rest mostly will be very, very traditional, very, very rudimentary something. No, that's been my personal experience. I may be wrong, but this is what I feel.
No, I agree. I think the world is moving away from chapa, right? So it was always a brand, right? So we earlier used to, with our training, used to struggle because A lot of bigger institutes, organizations always say that, are you from the institute? Can you get a chapa from the institute? Kind of stuff. I think it's no longer relevant. I think market is changing. So thank you. Thank you. I think I know my sincere apologies. I told you that the session will be 30 minutes and maybe 5-10 minutes more. But I think where we have gone on almost 54 minutes and we have gone non-stop. I know that before you guys say that the time is over and next minute you will charge me some $1,000. I thank you all for joining us here. Thanks, Gaurav. I think insights from a different perspective. Smrithi, your perspective from e-commerce side coming into fintech, and of course, as a fintech enabler from your side, Sabya, I think all of them are amazing. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank you.
Thanks for this.
Yes. Take care. Bye.
So I think, as you all know, friends, we have sort of gone beyond time. I'll just try to close this with few pointers from my side. And those points are, as we said that we've sort of launched, because of this career change which the market is going through, we have launched this the Digital Fifth FinTech School, primarily to ensure that people are getting ready for it. You can look at the website, training.thedigitalfifth.com, and you can get more details about it. My request is, again, each one of you, if you can send your feedback, we'll share with you our new report as well. And and maybe 3 or 4 of them, we will also share you our new open banking report as well, which we've just done. So we'll share you multiple reports as we go forward. And we spoke about digital lending courses coming up, which is a week down the line. And then we have digital payments, which is a net new detailed session, 2-day session we will have on 23rd and 24th. And then we'll get into digital banking. Digital banking is primarily on the banking perspective, end-to-end deep banking perspective. So for example, how large banks will change and transform. Then we'll get into sort of introduction to fintech, because many of you may not have much idea about each of these segments in deep. You may want to take it a good view on the lending side or a fintech side or a wealth side or a payment side. We'll give you view there. And then we will talk about this new segment which we are going to get into, which is executive program. So which is more like in 4 months, you'll get to learn a lot. And again, with industry guys. So we are not in a business where between me and Shashank, we obviously take a lot of sessions, but idea is to expose you to the real world. In fintech segment, for example, we'll get you exposure to quite a number of entrepreneurs. On the open banking side, you'll learn from entrepreneurs as well as bankers. When we are doing digital lending session, we are getting a lot of luminaries in the market, which will come up as well. So each segment is in depth, make you understand. There's always a project which we sort of take up and help you in executing those projects as a team. And I can tell you those learnings are some of the massive ones we will ever have in your life. So that's what we have seen till now. And a lot of our participants, earlier participants, have also changed the roles, responsibilities in their organization. Many of them have also set up their own companies as well. That has been the experience we have in last 3.5 years running these trainings. And of course, we are and one of the requests which we were getting is, can you help us in setting up a startup as well? And this is more from a startup perspective, but you can also use this training also from your own perspective, where you say, I want to use this skill also from internal perspective. Can I become an entrepreneur and lead this change within the organizations? And that's something which we will do. So largely a 120 hours course over the weekend only. Largely, we want to ensure that your weekdays are not impacted. But idea is that in 4 months, you should be ready for the market, because the market is changing very rapidly. And as you can see, a lot of things which we do, the courses are also built to ensure that all of us, including you and me, learn about it. Any questions you have can, of course, reach out to Saurabh Kumar Pandab and Sushri. We also, and both the details are here. And with this, I'm opening this floor for questions. If there's anybody who has a question, you can ask right away. And I'll respond back as such. So you can ask your questions right now, and I'll try to respond back. Any feedback, any questions, anything which will be good to have from your side? And we'll run for maybe just 5 more minutes. Any question on the forum? If you have more suggestions of what kind of knowledge sessions we should do in future, that will also be good. So then, any questions from you got? Maybe I'm just checking the last few ones.
No, sir, nothing at this end. We have given the questions in the chat box, Samir. So can you get back to those questions?
Yeah. So there's a question which says that what are the career opportunities for bankers, seasoned domain experts in their 50s who have actually translated the digital journey for upskilling and implement the entire customer experience journey and also expose them. I think age is a number, as you said, is perfectly okay. I think the only age, and I'm in the same age group as you are. I think the challenge with the market has been only that sometimes the salary expectations are a bit too high, and many of these entities cannot afford it. But obviously, if you're in the banking world, and if you have this experience, I'm sure there are a lot of good roles which exist in the market, including CDOs. In fact, I saw two of the CDOs, both in from HDFC, has moved to Ujjivan as CEO, and we just saw. I think Mr. Venkat Raman, or I may be just getting that name incorrect. He has moved from Equitas. He was a CDO in Equitas, has moved into CEO of Postal Bank as well. So I believe that this role, most of the CDOs and CTOs will also get into CEO roles very soon, because the market demands for that, and that's been the case on the fintech side. We're going to see more of it as we see forward. Let me answer some of more questions here. I think Hari, your question is more specific to not roles. It is not. It's more focused on collection. So I'll skip that here. Okay. I think the next question is more in terms of these courses which you are right now taking. This more specific to the courses, the short-term courses. The question is, how do they help? How have they helped people? Because they may be theoretical in nature. I think the world is theoretical. Somebody has just added. No, I think our questions are not theoretical at all. It is run by the ecosystem itself. So all the players, or I mean, for example, when we teach, for example, this digital lending course which is coming up on next Saturday, Sunday, it's a 2-day course, out of which we will take care of frameworks, process, and all. But industry luminaries will be coming and taking those sessions. So we will have almost 10 trainers on those 2 days back to back. Including from all perspective, let's say from SME lending perspective, for example, Samir Bhatia comes, who is the SME Corner CEO, he's joining us from that side. So every segment, for example, Nilufar is coming. Nilufar is from Federal Bank. She's business head for Federal Bank, and very forward looking from a banking perspective. So again, we get the people who and Ram from Perfios, he will talk about how new generation of platforms can be built, or maybe from off-bridge perspective, which is more how do you use KYC and data. We will have Pratyush joining us. So it's more about ecosystem telling rather than we do. So it's nothing. It's very sort of theoretical by nature. I see some more questions. Okay, the next question is from Harish. Is that we are talking about more about long-term course. What is its focus and what is it supposed to achieve? I think our perspective is that when we do these 2-day courses, we realize that it's too fast at times, and you may not be able to transition totally. And many of our participants, we have trained almost 2,500 people till now, maybe 2,800. One of the requests they were coming is that, can you bridge it into a long-term course and create over a period of time so that we can understand. For example, when we talk about fintech in ecosystem, we learn about it. When you do a digital strategy, we spend some time on the strategy. In 2-day course, it may not be possible all the time. So idea is that in something like 120 hours, which will be out of that 120 hours, some 40 odd hours will be around 30 odd hours will be digital, which means that they are recorded with luminaries, and also 90 hours will be done live with you. And those courses will be done like a 4-hour cohort or 5-hour session on a weekend, and then maybe a longer session, maybe 8 to 10-hour session on a weekend, so that you can actually experience the workshop as well. So idea is that after those 4 months, if you are working somewhere, you can use that skill for improving your performance dramatically. We have seen it all the while. I don't know if anybody is there who has been a part of our training earlier. We can share his perspective, but I think we've seen a massive improvement or change in the perspective of these people. Some of them have even joined for maybe half an hour in between, saying, "Ek baar dikhayega kya? Can you just show me something?" And so many of the trainers themselves have come back saying that they have been able to change their approach in the program. So we have seen founders coming up. So this is also for founders. There's also for senior people who want to change their roles and responsibilities. There are also people who want to move from technology side to business side. It is also for those who are in business side and want to learn about technology. But this course is not built for pure tech development. No, not at all. The course has been built primarily to ensure that if you are running a digital business in banking world or a lending world, you can run this business seamlessly, and that's the intent. You can become tomorrow an entrepreneur, or you can actually become an entrepreneur and build this business. For product managers, even for compliance people, it is for ops people. It's anybody who wants to sort of move to the next level. That's the approach and thought process for this particular training, friends. Just one sec. Then the next question is coming from Umang. How is product and so Umang, I'll take this question one-on-one because it maybe we can always chat. So the next question is that how is it that we don't have an open banking course coming frequently? If a slot is missed, we have to wait for months together to get another chance. So yeah, I think if there are, I mean, open banking was a massive hit. We just finished, I think, a couple of weeks back. I think that session was massive. But yes, if there is a demand is huge, Prem, we can actually replan it and bring it early. And maybe you can share these details. Maybe Sonali, if you can send your WhatsApp or in the chat message, you can put your number, and Saurav, you can also. They can reach out to you. But if you need us to bring it back, we can. Right now, the calendar is 3 months down the line, which is, I think it will be mostly coming in March. But for example, digital lending piece we were doing in February, and a lot of people came back that they wanted it desperately because that was career changing for many of people. We brought it back. So I think we can bring it back if the numbers are large. And we can even do more than 2 trainings in a month as well, because capacity is huge. And the request is also coming. So we will do that, Pringas, and thanks for that feedback as well. This is good to see traction coming. I think the last question is also, do you provide job opportunities after this? Answer is yes or no. No, of course, we can't guarantee the jobs after this. But what we will do, I'm talking about a long-term course, this 4-month course. You will, as part of this activity, we will become a part of our extended community. We almost have almost 1,500 in a WhatsApp groups or various groups already exist. So you will be part of the channel where the lot of jobs are put, and we have seen a lot of people getting jobs in that. We're also working closely with some companies so that we can take your profile there and they can look at. So we'll work on getting you hired. But obviously we really can't promise that. That's not a university can also promise, but we definitely will work out and reach out to the market to get you jobs. The next question was around the pricing of that product and how will it work. I think the pricing is 1.25 lakhs plus GST for the course coming up in June, in February for that 4 months course. We have tie-ups with the lenders as well. So if you want to pay in a split manner or EMI manner, we can also almost manage that. So that's not an issue at all. But of course, I would love it if you can. We would like to onboard. We would love to get you on board. And of course, before the year end, there's as usual, there's a special price before the year end. Everybody wants to close the year well, like that as well. So if you want to do, please join us and reach out to Sonali, reach out to Shrikant, and they will sort of get you onboarded rather quickly. But we will be on time on that. And I think Aarti also has shared her numbers, her details as well. She also wants to join. So I think few more guys are looking at. One question which is coming is that would you be doing something also for Middle East? We heard in the last session. We have not heard in the session. Are you going to do something for Middle East? I think Middle East program will also come up as part of this course. It will be differently priced because we are doing it very, very specific for Middle East. So what will happen is that in addition to this 120 hours of course, we are building a short course, something like 20-25 hours only for Middle East to make it more relevant. And that course also will run not on Sundays as the demand has been. It will run actually on a Friday. so that you have I mean, you don't have to take off for specific course. So this is specifically for Middle East people. And one of the demand which many of you had that can you change the timing, because we do typically 9 to late night on every day. I think when we plan these sessions, we'll be aligned more towards ensuring that everybody can join. So it'll start slightly late, more or less. When we do the 5-hour course, it'll be starting at 2 o'clock. So 2 to 7:30, what we're looking at, so that other time zones can also adjust. But that's right now indicative numbers we have. So that's about it. If there is anything else, we can close now. Any questions, guys? I'm still here. Shashank is still here. So any questions till now? And I think if not, we can close. Thank you, friends. And can I see Sonali?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Sonali has been the one who's sort of running this this activity for her. So you can reach out to her as well. And thanks, Sonali, for running this. Thank you. And yeah, and thanks, Shashank, for running this, moderating this session. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oscar, you are coming or going?
So I think he has some connection issue because he was getting disconnected. Yeah, he's still connecting to audio.
Yeah, and anybody has a question you can ask me before we leave. Rania or Anup or Hari, we are just not leaving because yeah, we can. Anything you have, you want to ask, you can ask right now as well. Yeah. If not, we just close right now.
No, nothing from my end. Samir, hi, how are you? Nice to interact with you after a long time. And for the wonderful session, thank you so much for holding this. Pretty insightful.
Thank you, Anup. Thank you.
Chalo.
And well, sir, let's meet sometime.
Done.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.